Hi then guys, hello and welcome back to the Once You're In podcast. This is a in-person special because Reece is at mine, as you have probably already established if you're watching and not listening.
Apologies to all Spotify listeners.
Yeah, sorry, Reece is next to me.
Yes.
Not in a virtual world, in a real life world. And we don't have that long. We have like an hour before the England game. So do you want to do an intro or
We'll do an intro. Through? To be fair, our usual intros are quite quick.
Let's make it quicker.
Yeah. So I can ask, how are you? How are you doing?
Mate? I'm good, thanks, mate.
Is that the intro? Yeah, I'm good as well. Right, questions, imagine. No, everything's good. On my end, pretty much the same as last week, if I'm honest. 13 weeks and 5 days out, so just under 14 weeks. I feel like the last few weeks, from a visual standpoint, quite a few changes. You'd say so, wouldn't you? I feel like I'm looking a fair bit better now. Going past that stage. Did you just do a face?
No, I literally just smile because you're actually getting leaner. And you think when I say it that I'm taking the piss, but I'm not.
Yeah, because I would. Because I'm still not lean. I'm still not...
No, you look a lot different. You're at the point now where you don't look flat.
No.
But still fat. You've gone past that now.
Yeah, so I've probably got, I'd say 2 or 3 weeks and I'll actually be looking quite okay, which will be a welcomed addition because it's been quite a long period. I'm 8 weeks in at this point. And you imagine 8 weeks of a diet. Usually I'm coming to what I've dieted in the past. I'm usually coming to like the conclusion of like a diet after like 8 to 10 weeks. But obviously, like this point, it'll be where a couple more weeks down the line, yes, I'll be looking all right, I'll be lean, but there's a difference between lean and being stage lean. So still a lot of fat to come off, a lot of work to be done. I said to you yesterday, I was like, it's almost like doing like a 10 repper and you're like 4 to 5 reps in. But in reality, you said it's probably a bit less. And in reality, it's been a breeze so far. I'm not expecting it to be easy, but so far it's been sound. And I'm expecting it to be obviously a bit more challenging, but it is what it is. So everything's good from my end. Training's in a good spot. Life's in a good spot. Going to Leeds tonight, so leaving Finn for Wednesday and Thursday.
Where you going? Prom.
Yeah, going to prom. I got my prom. So graduation that I've called prom about 3 times. I'm just riding with it now. So I'm going to prom. So excited considering my attendance was at 0% for pretty much all modules this year. And I'm hoping to be in and out within 30 minutes.
Communicate.
Yeah, like in and out, quick as possible. I don't even know what I've had for. I just want to know what I got for my grade. I think I'll get told my grade. If I don't, I've wasted it.
You get a 3-1.
3-1. Just get a pass. I'm like, you've actually failed. I'm like, sound. Cheers for that. 3 years down the line, wasted. But no, everything other than that is in a good spot, and it's the same old, same old. You could make the intro so long. That's the thing.
I've got a big difference this week.
Really?
My car's fucked, isn't it?
Oh yeah, Finn's been stressing his
heart
rate variability. It's been an all-time low because he's just in such a bad position to recover. His aura ring has told him he needs to be in bed for the next 7 days.
Stop training.
Yeah, stop training, retire.
Car's in the garage, stop training.
Yeah. So do you want to give an update about what happened to your car and how I've bailed you out?
My car just stopped working and then Reece bailed me out.
Many a times.
Yeah. No, it wasn't. What was it? You gave me a lift on Thursday. You gave me a lift on...
Lift home Saturday.
And then yesterday was normal.
Yeah, but it wasn't my turn to drive. So it wasn't my turn. So basically, we take it in turns. I've now done 2 trips in a row.
Yeah, but I'll just do 2.
I'm never going to be able to financially recover from the petrol that I've had to buy. Never going to financially recover from it. So
I'm not going to go into the car. I can't bother. Basically, the car is in a garage.
I'm not going to go into the car. But basically, I'm going to go into the car.
No, but the car's in the garage and and the people in the garage are useless.
Yeah.
So I don't know when the car's going to be sorted. And I don't know what the issue is. So I've been using Ubers and I've been using Reece as my other Uber driver.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, your sound compared to the others don't show up.
Yeah. We don't talk.
Yeah, we don't talk. We just get on with work.
Yeah, just get on the car. Right, fuck off. Shut the fuck up. It's got voice notes to go through.
But other than that, everything's sound with me. I don't think there's anything that's changed since last week. Was I ill in the last one? I was just recovering from being ill.
Just recovering from COVID.
Just recovering from being so ill.
Yeah.
Everyone seems to have COVID now, and it's so bad all of a sudden.
It's all of a sudden really bad.
It's so bad.
You get a positive test, you're awful. It's so bad. You know, flat as anything. Just look appalling. I mean, you did lose a bit. You're like £5 up from the last podcast. If you think about it, you're like 194. You're like 198 now. Aren't you?
Yeah.
199.
I think the lowest I was 194.75. That was just literally one day.
Yeah.
And I went back up to like 196. 197. So I got like the weight went on pretty quick, and the weight was really just down from that fucking Monday that was ridiculously hot.
Yeah.
So it wasn't bad. But yeah, I'm fine now. Feel loads better. Just ball late with the car. But yeah, other than that, things are good.
£200 taken soon.
Yeah.
That's good.
Still fat though.
Yeah, I'm leaner than Finn now, at least, so that'd be good.
I'll tell you what. Yeah.
Yeah. To be fair, I've probably been leaner for the last couple of weeks, but I'm like, I'm noticeably leaner now. So, and I've only got 25 pounds on them, so it's all good.
I wouldn't say you're noticeably leaner.
My arms and delts are a lot.
Yeah, but your arms and delts are always leaner.
Yeah, true. Yeah, but yeah, so I wouldn't say I'm noticeably leaner, but I'm leaner, so therefore leaner. So Finn's not competing, doesn't matter, but we can take small wins when needed. And then Sonny can tag us in a story. Reece is leaner than Finn.
Who's bigger?
Who's leaner? Who's bigger?
Whoever sits closest to the camera.
Yeah, it'll just slides over like this. Yeah, it's right. So
massive.
Yours?
Mine. Yeah, that guy was right about my head.
I don't know. My head looks bigger. I'm not used to the camera. Finn got told he's got a big head. And I got told, we've both got a hater.
My head's normal.
I can't take photos about twisting at the waist or having strange angles. And Finn has just got a massive head.
I'm not like a child.
Yeah, so his physique will always.
To be fair, he was correct.
Yeah, definitely. Right, so we have a few questions, believe it or not. I say a few. I've only got this week 7. So I'm not too sure how many you've got, mate. You can rattle through a few. But what we thought we'd do is we just answer a few questions, go into the details as we usually would. And yeah, if you've still got questions to go through, feel free to answer or ask a few. So we'll start off with Harry Putley. He has asked, what's the reasoning behind 2 or 1 sets each exercise instead of the typical 3 to 4? Question mark. Love the pod. So thanks, Harry.
Love the pod.
Yeah,
That's nice to hear.
It is a nice outro.
As if people actually listen to this.
Yeah. I can't remember who I was saying it to. I said it to someone when they mentioned about the podcast. No, it wasn't my mum. It was someone who mentioned it to me in person, like, oh, I like the podcast. And I remember saying, like, I was like, oh. It's like, like it's a bit like, yeah. I just find it a bit awkward because it's like, it's just us talking.
It's like when that guy in the changing rooms or in the posing room was like, "Oh, I watched your prep series," and I was like, "Cheers, mate." Like, it is weird. You just say thank you, don't you?
Yeah, you don't really know what to say because you just do yourself.
Say, "Oh, do you want an autograph?"
Yeah, do you want a photo? You got to tag me in the photo. And I go, awesome meeting you, bud. Cheers, good.
They just say, "Oh, I like the podcast," and you're there writing out an autograph. I'm like, yeah, all right, mate.
Yeah, sound like, just send someone to like your agent or whatever. Deal with it.
Oh, you like the podcast? Speak to him then.
Yeah, speak to. I'll be like, I'll speak to him.
I was literally just saying I liked it.
Yeah, speak to him, mate. I'm not talking.
I'm the admin man.
Yeah, headphones in the gym, world away, or whatever. You know,
you take phone calls in the gym.
Mate, Finn was answering. Finn came over to me mid T-bar row. Reece, they sorted my car. They sorted my car. My car's fixed. Right, so Harry, apologies. We've rambled on. To summarise, appreciate the love the pod. Now, I would kind of break it down and say, what is the typical? So what's the typical, like, why is 3 to 4 sets typical? Like, this is something that a lot of people will have because they're married to the opinion. It's like when you start off at the gym, it's bench press, 3 sets of 12, flat dumbbell, 4 sets of 8. And usually like the repetitions will add up between like 30 and maybe like 45, and it will just be 3 to 4 total sets. And in a sense, like, and this almost answers another question that we've got. So we'll kind of save a bit of it. But you'll get to a point where, let's say me and Finn have clients, I can talk for myself, but I know Finn will mention the same, where let's say if we don't know how hard they train, we don't know how their training intensity is, we'll most likely set them up on potentially 3 working sets. I wouldn't really say 4. I don't think I've really ever had anybody on 4, but more specifically 2 to 3. And it's usually a transition period where you can almost adapt and work to the 2 sets. But if your training intensity is pretty poor, and this is almost just comparing maybe your training to our training, if we were to do 3 sets, not only psychologically are we battered, physically we're going to be written off. And it's going to probably tax us in that one movement, and then it's going to take away from other subsequent movements of that session where we could actually get greater stimulus if we were to pull the sets down from 3 sets to 2 sets. And at the same time, like me and Finn perform 1 working set on certain things with 1 set, and it might just be a rest pause, it might just be a single straight set. So there's not really a cap on, let's say, how many sets you have to do. So the typical 3 to 4, I'd almost summarize it and think, well, as a beginner, it's important to get established movement patterns, neurological connections are going to get better, you're going to get your skill acquisition on each move is going to get better. But at the same time, like, there is that degree where you will eventually learn and earn the 2 working sets, shall we say. So I've probably left a fair bit out there, mate, but anything that you wanted to add in on that?
I'd just say it's just quality over quantity. Like, for most people, you might need more than 2 sets to get everything out of that given muscle. If you imagine the goal of an exercise is to fatigue that target muscle as much as possible. So let's say on like a leg extension, so you might do the first set, you might do like a 2-second pause on the contraction, let's say, and you feel like absolutely trashed after that set. If you were to do another set, do you feel like you could still get as much out of your quads as possible? Like, probably not. You probably get a decent amount out of it. Like, you're not going to completely... It's not as if you go into a second set and you can't touch the weight. Like, you literally can't move the weight. Obviously, you're going to be able to move the weight. You're going to be able to get enough out of the exercise, but what's the actual quality going to be like? Is it just going to be a set for the sake of a set? Like, we've done it loads when we used to train. Like, just do another set, just do another set. You just keep doing more sets for the sake of it. And the actual quality is shit. And you're not really getting that much out of those sets. It's just sort of like junk volume. You're probably not even taking them to true failure. And that's where most people, when they do 3, 4, 5 sets, whatever they may do, every set is shy of failure.
Maybe the last one.
Yeah, the last one, often they might take to true failure. But before that, they're just basically what warm-up sets would be for us, but just with more reps. They'll probably leave 3, 4, 5 reps inside. You'll see people do, like, on dumbbell pressing, they'll do the 20s, then the 30s, then the 35s, then the 40s, then the 45s, let's say. And every set is 10 reps. But only the 45s, they actually fail at 9 or 10. Yeah. So, like, the difference between that and what we would generally do, or people at a higher level may do, is that they would do warm-up sets, but as they work the way up, they actually bring the reps down, so they're saving energy. They're preparing themselves sort of physically and mentally for a heavier load, but they're not fatiguing themselves in the warm-ups. And then they won't be pressing 45s, they'll be pressing the 60s. And then they'll be doing the 50s as a back-off set for 10, rather than the 45s as one true set for 10, and they'll get the 60s for 7. So the actual external loading is better, the mechanical tension is better. You could argue that, yeah, the total volume is less. If you were to add up the volume of the whole 5 sets versus 2 sets and the weight times the reps, yeah, the volume is going to be lower. But volume isn't the primary driver for hypertrophy. So we don't need to only worry about volume. Otherwise, we could just do loads and loads of reps with a sub-maximal load. And we're not going to get big like that. You know, yeah, you'll grow some muscle, but you're not going to grow a lot of muscle. So I think people worry too much about the intricacies, like, oh, how many sets should I do? When you need to focus instead on how's your form, how hard can you train? Yeah. Focus on those first before you even worry about how many sets you're doing. Like, if we knew what we knew now when we started training, we'd have probably done we'd have done more, we'd have done more working sets than we do now, but we'd have probably been like, right, we'll do 3 sets there, 3 sets there, 2 sets, 2 sets, 2 sets, one set. Yeah. Rather than like, let's do 10 sets on bench press today, or let's do GVT on leg press, like just random shit that you do. But it's all part of learning. Yeah. But if we knew what we knew now, like, we would focus a lot more on, like, what's our form looking like? Yeah. Do you think you took that to failure? Like, we'd focus on that.
The quality instead. Of the work. Like, a lot of people will focus on the quantity, and you'll hear people like, oh, I've upped my volume on this, I've gone to 4 sets. But as Finn said, like, if your volume, even if you're doing 6 sets, but 5 of the sets are dire, you need to look at the quantity. Yeah. And like, as we said, the higher level guys, they can get out of 1 set more than what potentially someone could potentially get out of maybe half a session or a whole session. Like, especially on like a lower body movement. Like, I'm convinced you could probably ask the most pros that don't train like weapons and don't have like ridiculous genetics, and they could take a hack squat to the point where, let's say, someone in the first year of training, they could jump on the leg extension, ham curls, the leg press. They wouldn't even get as near stimulus as what that dude's getting. Or female, should we say? Don't specify for genders here, but most likely it's going to be a male if it's going to be on the hack, like taking it all the way there. Like, you never know.
Can't say that.
You never know, but you know, because you'd argue like it would just be like, oh, the female might be doing 2 to 3 plates, the lads probably like 12 plates. Like,
I think one thing that's good to say, like, this is what I say to my clients, is like, you don't need more volume, you need better quality volume, because the current volume that you're doing is sound. Like, you're just not performing enough quality volume. So start off lower, then work your way up. And if you're really like new to training and you're quite weak, like, when I say start off lower, that might be 2-3 sets, like at the start of training. Now that would be like maybe too much for some people when you train at a higher level, but you need to focus on the quality of the volume versus just, oh, I need to do more.
Yeah. And we'll have people, like, we've got new startups before, and one of the first things, like, if you send over a session, like, I've had clients where they start with 20 to 30 working sets a session, and I might strip that down to 12.
Yeah, within a few weeks, you can bring it right down, because you're like, oh shit, they train really well.
Yeah, and you can go from there. But I've also had clients, and they say to me in their first few check-ins, I feel like I could handle more. And usually that's like one of the first like coaching instincts to jump in and be like, well, no, you can't handle more. You just need to put in more into those
Get
sets.
stronger.
Yeah, and get stronger. And therefore the demand for recovery in the session as such is going to increase in a slight way, because you're not going to be able to handle as much work as you previously could. I said this to a client today on a check-in. If I was to, me and Finn train currently 4 times a week. If I was to say that to us 2 years ago when we started training, we trained 6 times. We did push-pull legs, push-pull legs. I remember you once,
do arms on the Sunday.
and on the Sunday I played football and I do arms and delts. So it was always like 7 sessions, and you'd be working, you'd probably get an arm pump or whatever, or you'd be doing like abs or whatever. So it would be like an active rest day. And I remember you said to me once, "Oh, I'm going to drop. Do you fancy going to 5 sessions? Like, I feel like it could be better." And I was like, I like training 6 times. Like, I don't want to drop to 5 times currently.
It's almost scary.
Yeah.
When you think to do it, you think, oh, I'm going to lose muscle. I'm going to get worse.
And I just enjoyed it, and I still enjoy it. But my psychological elements are strictly driven off my own progress. And for me to progress, I need to optimize recovery, and therefore 4 sessions and then as well you mix in external factors. So for example, what we mentioned, like when it comes to workload, we can shift our rest day work and we can make a few manipulations. I think in an ideal world, if me and Finn had nothing to do other than train, maybe we'd train 5 times a week at lower volume in the sessions. But at the same time, I like the approach now. Like maybe a few years from now, we'll be training differently in different, well, we'll train similar, but we'll be in different thought processes around training. But that's the whole beauty of it.
Yeah,
like you learn as you go.
You learn as you go.
So it would be naive of us to say, this is what we're going to be doing for the next 5 or 10 years. But right now, training 4 times a week, if you said that to us a few years ago, we'd go, no chance. But from a performance standpoint, from our leveling up of our own training, that's something that we've almost have to work towards. And again, there's no need to rush. We spent years, I'm 9 years into training at this point, and I would have probably tried every single split, done every single movement you could imagine. And like it gets to a point where I've done the 3 to 4 working sets. So it's Finn, but now we're doing 2. So earn the right, get there when it's needed, focus on your quality and not just the quantity. And then likewise, execution should be on point. Next question, ding, ding, go for it.
This is from Sonny.
Oh, who's bigger?
Who's
bigger? Sonny, no way. Another question.
He put, worst thing you've seen in a commercial gym or any gym training or something weird? Reece is pressing.
Oh God, yeah, my pressing. He's really, Sonny, you're not liking the gym, are you? Like, he's really not liking.
He's not enjoying training at the gym.
He's taking out every bit of anger
on the podcast.
On the podcast, he's just like, right, how can I take it out on the gym? So. What need to settle the arm wrestle debate.
What's that? Is Will Hughes fit?
Yeah,
he's asked me a question.
He's Conran's client. Yeah, so shout out Will Hughes, messaged me about coaching.
Good player.
And I sent him to Conran B. Yeah, I don't he's still Conran.
Good ability though, hasn't he?
Yeah, Conran coaches him. So.
Anyway, come on, we're on Sonny's question.
Right, so Sonny, what worst bit? What for people training
in the commercial gym
or bits of kit?
I'd assume he means like people training.
The thing is, and this comes across really cocky, but it's the honest assessment. I couldn't care what other people are doing. Like, again, I sound like a broken record because I've just said I had a check-in today. I had a check-in with Fraser. Fantastic listener of the podcast. He's probably smiling.
Fantastic listener. He listens better than someone else.
Yeah, he listens fantastically. He was the guy who asked a question about the going out, and
listens really well.
Making sure to get back onto it after he fell off for like a few days. And basically, I was saying to him, like, when we trained in a pure, he's training in a pure currently, and his check-in today was like, mate, I'm not enjoying it as much as I was before. And like, there's not really much I can say. Like, I can't really be saying, oh, mate, just enjoy it. Like, you're in a gym. I did say to him 3 months ago, you were training at home.
Yeah.
Like I said, I kind of was.
You create your own sort of environment.
And I said, I was like, me and you used to train in the pure. We didn't speak to really anybody. Obviously, you spoke to people because you work there. But it wasn't where we really chatted to anybody. It was headphones in. Like, we wouldn't really even talk to each other much. It was just literally get in, you get out.
It's just like now, but at a lower level. Yeah. Like when we were learning more.
Yeah, and you just focus on what you can. So like the worst thing I've seen from like, I actually will say a story. This was when I was about 16. I think I told you about this. I was on the flat bench, and it was like, when everyone used to finish school, so we jump on the flat bench afterwards. So we like GCSE time, we'd go in and either deadlift 1 rep max or like flat bench. And I remember, like, I was always quite a strong presser. And I think I had like 110 on the bar. And I think it was like I said, it's 15, 16, maybe 17. Probably 17 I was a bit stronger. So it was around 100 to 110. And I remember this dude came in, and he, no warm-up, just comes straight over to us lads. And he's like, how many sets you got? And we all had like 10. Like, we were like, mate, we're going to be here a long time. Do you want to jump in? And he goes, yeah, sound, I'll jump in. So we were like, all right, cool. What do you want on? And he was like, oh, I'll just do this. Bearing in mind, the lad's probably 60 kilos, 70 kilos. Like, he does not look like he's got any right. Just walk through the door, not even a single warm-up set. So I'm like, all right, so I'll crack on. Like, I didn't want to say anything. I was like, all right, crack on, mate. Unracks it, drops it straight on his chest. He's stuck there. And he, like, tries to press it. And then he like, shouts, like, help. And, like, I literally made the slowest attempt. I, like, was stood at the end of the bench. So imagine, like, looking down on him. I'm by his feet. Like, I wasn't, like, stood over him. I just looked at him and I was just like, so I just walked around, picked it up. And he gets to the top and he racks it. And then he just goes, yeah, a little bit too heavy for me. And I was like, yeah, you don't say. Gets up, walks straight out of the gym. I literally never saw him again. That was it. It cancelled his membership a bit. Like, that kind of thing. That's probably the worst. Weird. And that was just because it was more so, like, I was probably friendlier back then. So it was like, you just see me as a young lad.
Yeah, now we'd be like, mate,
yeah,
I'd do a few walks first.
Yeah, I'd do that. I'd probably, but at the same time, I think I was quite immature, and I was just like,
you want to see him?
Yeah, I was just like, yeah, go on. I'd be like, he said to me, should I do a warm up? So I was like, nah, don't worry, bro, you'll be fine. But no, right now, like, we don't really, because we don't train in the same gym, like, every session, we don't really get too accustomed with the members in the gym.
Yeah.
So, and therefore, when you don't, like, when you're just focusing on yourself, and, like, I'll just be listening to my music, or, like, I'll be chatting to you about the session, I'll be watching, like, clips of the session, or I'll be doing a set. There's not really a thought that I'm like, oh, I'm looking around and wondering what's the worst thing I've seen in a commercial gym. At the end of the day, the vast majority of people that train in pures and commercial gyms aren't going to be the most high level when it comes to trainers. Therefore, the likelihood of them being weapons in the gym is higher, meaning, like, how people train like weapons, and not actual weapons. Imagine, there's an AK-47 over there. Like, every pure gym, every pure gym. It's just like, oh god, that's a big gun over there.
I don't feel like these kind of questions. Like, I just don't take things in. Like, you know, like you do, like, oh, we should do a question about, like, funny stories in the gym. Like, I have no funny stories. Yeah. And you were like, what about embarrassing things? I don't think I have anything embarrassing. Like, I don't know whether it's just me, or I forget these things, or they don't resonate with me. I don't, like, nothing would happen. I'm like, oh, and then remember it for years. Yeah. Like, if something happens, I'm like, oh, that happened today. And then within a week, I've probably forgotten that it happened. Like, if you were to mention it, I'd remember, but I don't keep it in my memory and think, oh, I saw this once at a pure gym and this guy was doing this. Yeah,
like, I could say, just forget, and I don't embarrassing. Like, at home, I had an accident in my white Calvins on the hack squat.
Yeah, but you do that every week.
Yeah, but, like, that's normal. Like, if you're taking a hack squat to failure and you're in white boxes,
just the fact that you're wearing white. That's what I wear black boxes every session, so that when I shit myself, it's all right.
Yeah, so there we go, normal. So yeah, to answer your question, Sonny. Like, I'd like to reverse it. What's yours? Like,
what have you seen to ask us that
because
question?
I don't think there's a lot. Like, people just train like idiots, and, like, if you just get past that, you can just make, as you said, make your own atmosphere, and then just go from there.
We've got the same question.
Have we? Who from? Same dude?
I don't think so.
No. So we've been asked, what's your split by Tabio Zen Xiao Tableau.
And then Brightman's brother.
Yeah.
Eris is Brightman.
Current your workout split. What's current your workout split? Fantastic, that God. Runs in the family. Good. So my split currently is a pull session Monday with a bit of hams, a push and arm session Wednesday, lower session Thursday, and then a Saturday session is a full upper. So 4 times a week, and then pretty much everything ticked off twice, bar lower, which is ticked off once, but we have a bit of hamstring work on the Monday session. What about you, mate?
That's me.
Cheers, mate. Thanks.
I have legs on a Monday, which is a little bit more hamstring dominant. I have push. You call it push and arms. I just call it push. I know we do have more arms in it, but I just call it push.
Yeah.
And then that's on Wednesday. Legs on Thursday, which is a little bit more quad dominant. And then the Saturday is pull. So I hit legs twice, push once, pull once.
Yeah.
Arms, delts, things, smaller body parts I hit 3-4 times a week. Will Hughes fit?
That's your question.
What is the importance of meal timing?
Did you actually say important?
No, it's
no. Meal timings, right? Good question. Don't feel like we've answered this. I feel like we've been asked about protein. So
protein's probably the most important.
Yeah, definitely. So ideally, if we're looking at it from like an MPS perspective, so muscle protein synthesis, we're advised by literature believe it or not.
We know.
20 to 40 grams of a whole complete protein source, ideally between 2.5 to 4 hours. If you're at like the tail end of a bulk, it's probably going to be the longer part of that, so like the 3.5 to 4 hour mark. If you're going to be in a fat loss phase and food's a bit lower, digestion's most likely going to be a little bit quicker, unless you just digest food really slowly, or potentially you've had like a really high fat meal. I'm overcomplicating it, but 2.5 to every 4 hours, you want to have 20 to 40 grams of a complete protein source. That basically is a protein source that has all amino acids. So with knowing that, if we were to break that down, that means that we pretty much have to eat between every 2.5 to 4 hours. Therefore, that would usually correlate between 5 to 6 meals a day. There is a benefit of around 5 over 4, but it's a negligible change from 5 to 6. But we can get benefit from having 6 meals a day. And in a sense, from a meal timing perspective, it would depend really. Like on a non-training day, I just advise eating every 3 hours as such, so slap bang in the middle. Therefore, that will most likely tilt you off if you have 20 to 40 grams of protein in each meal. That will probably tick your protein goal off as well. If we were to go off your body weight, so let's say you're 100 kilos times that by 2.2, that would be the maximum end of the reference range. But ideally, there's a bit of carryover where we could actually argue that your protein could be a fair bit higher. So for example, your protein, if you were to go strictly off body weight, it shouldn't really be exceeding like a 210, 200, it'd be around the 200 gram mark. Well, your protein's up like 270 now, isn't it? 260, 270, if I'm not mistaken. 285. So in a sense, you could just look at protein. You then look at, right, if it's a training day, you'd want your meal timing placed around your session. So for example, how quick could you eat before you train? So for example, with us, we're quite lucky in the sense like digestion-wise, we're quite similar. Like we can both eat within probably 30 to 45 minutes prior to us training. But I've had clients where they eat an hour.
I've always liked eating relatively close.
Yeah, I have. I'd like, because as well, our sessions are quite long. It's like I quite like the thought process of not having all the food fully digested by the time I actually get in. And I always have quite good digestion just due to me eating the same food sources every day. So I usually know how things sit with me. So I would then look at your pre-workout meal. Usual reference range, like most people say, between like 45 minutes and maybe like 90 minutes. 90 minutes is usually recommended, but I would say if you can get away with it being closer and it feels good and you feel like you train better, have it closer. And then from a post-workout setting, the second heart rate comes back down to a baseline. But again, if we're being completely critical, like if you're in a gym, arousal levels are high, it's a hot gym, it's probably going to take too long to the point where it's going to be advised for certain individuals if you're trying to get in a lot of food. So having a post-workout meal, not as soon as possible after training, definitely chill out. Like on Monday, we have a post-workout meal in the car, but we've already done some posing. We finished our session probably 20 or 30 minutes before. We've walked to the car, we've chilled out for 5 or so minutes. And in a post-workout state, meal time is pretty important to replenish glycogen. So you'd want a high carbohydrate meal in that meal. And then at the same time, for that post, I find you can actually have that a little bit sooner, just because obviously the uptake of carbohydrates in the post-workout setting are going to be higher. So therefore, you can actually get away with the post being slightly sooner after that post-workout meal. So the importance of meal timing, in a sense, is very in-depth. If you want to be really in-depth, you could look at then fat sources and say, well, fats are going to slow down the digestion of those carbs. So for example, in a pre-bed meal, you might potentially favor having maybe higher fat content, or potentially in a pre-workout meal, you could favor again having higher fat content, so the carbohydrates are kind of digested in a slower fashion. But in a sense, if you could just focus on protein, eating every 2.5 to 4 hours, I think you should be pretty much spot on.
I'll cover why as well, like because everything you said bang on, but the reason behind it, because you could say all that, and then it's like, yeah, but why? Yeah. Like why should we do that? So in regards to protein, you pretty much covered why we should with carbs in terms of replenishing glycogen and giving ourselves energy for our training, and that's fine. And obviously with the fats as well, slowing things down, etc. That's all cool. But in terms of protein, like I think it's one of those things people say all the time, like, oh, you should eat 5 meals a day, or you should eat 6 meals a day, or you should eat protein every 3 hours, or every 2 to 4 hours you should eat 20 to 40 grams of complete protein. But then it's sort of like, yeah, but why? Like, what is that actually doing? Yeah. So obviously, like you said, it's spiking muscle protein synthesis, which is what we need to do in order to be in a net positive protein balance over time. That's what we want. If we're in a positive protein balance, we're in a more optimal position to build muscle. Just being in a positive protein balance and just spiking muscle protein synthesis doesn't mean we are building muscle. Yeah. And this is what people think, like, oh, well, I'm eating a lot of protein, I'm spiking MPS, I'm in a great position to build muscle. It's like, yeah, but how's your training looking? Yeah. So you need to, again, focus on that first. But being in that positive protein balance is going to put you in the best position to do so. This is why, like, when people are in a diet phase and they're in obviously a negative energy balance, not just protein balance, but in a negative energy balance, it's harder for the body to build muscle, because obviously we've got less energy stored to tap into. But just with protein, if we're let's say, giving ourselves 8 hours plus to consume protein. So we've eaten at 8 a.m. in the morning, and then we don't eat another meal until 4 or 5 p.m. in the afternoon. Generally, our body's digested through that protein and utilized that protein within the first, let's say, 2 to 4 hours. Then we're going 4 or 5 hours when we need really to be we're in a negative protein balance there. Yeah, we're in, muscle protein breakdown. We've spiked muscle protein synthesis, peaked and come down. And then we're just sort of in that negative protein balance for a certain amount of time where our body's not in a position to build muscle. Then it's not, we're not in a position to help the recovery of the muscle, and we're not going to be generally, putting ourselves in a positive position to try and do that. So that's why it's not as if like we should just do it because it means we're going to grow. It doesn't, but it means it's going to help us. We're in a much better position to do so. And then obviously you covered things in terms of carbs and the timings, and then obviously fats and slowing things down. But I think protein is the main one. Carbs, yes, there is warrant to where you place them and place them around the training window, definitely. But I think in terms of the actual, the primary importance, if it was to be like, right, you can only choose which one macro to accurately space out for your nutrient timing, you choose protein. Because you'd be like, I'll just get carbs in whenever. Like, even if you had to, if you had let's say 500, 600 carbs to get in, and you just split them up 100 per meal, you'd be sound. Your training might not be maybe as optimal as it would be with 300 or 400 round training, but it'd still be sound. Whereas if you were to be like, just have all my protein in meal one, you're missing out on that ability to continuously spike MPS and putting yourself in a much worse position to be growing. Yeah,
I agree. And on a final note, I will say, when it comes to like training as such, like you can argue about the mechanisms behind the meal timing. But if you were to look at it as a forefront of your training, obviously the factors that we've mentioned, and more specifically the ones that Finn mentioned, are going to be playing a role. But then you also have to understand, if you were again to look at it, like let's say we know clients, and like the ones that do well are the ones that just live their day on repeat. So when they're training, they have the same training times, they have the same meal times. The ones that go into the gym and they're like, I just lacked a bit of power today. You ask them, did you do anything differently? And they're like, I only had 2 meals this morning.
Or they don't have a structure. They don't even know what they've done differently.
So like when we look at meal timings, it doesn't even need to be that in depth. It could just be a sense of making sure, right, look at your daily structure. When are you going to eat? When are you going to train? Keep that consistent. If let's say if you're doing a push session and one day you're having, let's say 1 meal to go in, the following session you're having 4 meals, the following day you're having 0 meals and 1 liter of water. There's so many inconsistencies that from like your own personal perspective, you might be saying 1 week, I feel fantastic this session. And because you're not tracking the variables, you might be thinking, this is really inconsistent. When in reality, you're just being inconsistent, and therefore you're going to expect inconsistent results and inconsistent progression. So you can even look at meal timings as such a basic, not even try and understand the mechanisms behind it, and just say, just eat at the same time, or try your best to. If you've got a structure and routine that you can't amend your meals to, I would usually say most people can. Like if you have to sneak off to the toilet or whatever, but in a sense, do that. But in a sense, like just try and be consistent when it comes to meal timings.
Yeah, I think we probably went into that into too much depth, but from a basic standpoint, that's good because it's consistent.
Yeah, I feel like we both kind of jumped in and we didn't just think, right, well, we could just have a look at it from there. But we've answered all now, so no more questions allowed from you now, mate. That's it. Right, so we'll answer. Do you want to do Dylan? So Dylan, new startup.
That's his surname. It's a weird one.
No, Dylan.
Dylan, new startup.
Dylan, new startup XD. Dylan. I mean, I will say, like, I think he's. I would have to know exact age, but having XD in your name, like, I mean,
mate, you can't say anything.
Yeah, XD. Yeah, that's my email. It's pretty poor. But XD in your Instagram username, Dylan. Come on, you seem lovely, mate. I'm not a fan of that. How do you manage with so many clients and keep on track with everything? Right, so
we haven't got any clients.
Yeah, we haven't. We've said this
it's
before.
All fake.
We say this on the podcast. We literally take photos of our screencast from like weeks in advance. We make up client
I just make up names. 30-second video, Jack, week 32. Yeah. Just make it up.
Yeah, fake Instagram.
Fake it until you make it.
Yeah, Finn messages himself off Shannon's phone, so his girlfriend's phone, and then he'll screenshot it and like he'll then put it on his story.
Oh my god, another client win, fire.
Another client win, fire. Arrow emoji at fkphysiques or T-Bar-Fit, and then like at the same time, like he'll voice note, hey, just really getting on really well with this week's Mother Trade. Coaching's been fantastic. And then they're like, he's like, another client getting after it. I hate that, that client win.
Client win, and it's like a fire emoji. And it's fire.
The client win thing is so. There's certain things from a coaching standpoint which just
Like I said, I don't like it when people are like, insane transformation.
Yeah.
Like, you'll never see us put that. We literally just put like,
we said this.
Awesome progress.
Yeah.
Because it's not a transformation because you've not finished something.
Yeah.
It's like amazing current progress from, or 6 weeks in with, like, and you're making a certain amount of progress. It's not like, this is a huge, crazy transformation. In 6 weeks, you can do this. Like, it's just sales, isn't it, and marketing. It's shit.
Yeah, or like the photos will be in completely different spots, different lighting, they'll be posed. And like,
should we actually answer the question?
Yeah, sorry, Dylan. XD. So, we've been asked this a few times by like the limited clients that we haven't lied about. And in a sense, like, I'm not too sure, because at the end of the day, people have these like viewpoints of how probably I am and how Finn is, and that could be completely bang on, or most of the times probably inaccurate. In a sense, like, there will be people who look at what we do and they're like, oh my god, like, I've had messages off other coaches in the past, and they've said like, how do you structure your day? And I can't really advise them other than saying, just look at your structure, look at your routine, and just make sure you are on it as well as you can.
You've got to be. Time management is ridiculously key. Like, if 5 minutes really goes out either way on our day, like,
we're not training, like,
it messes things up completely. Like, you have to be really, really strict with that. Like, we don't just randomly one day, I'll just go to bed later tonight, or I'll just get up at a different time, like, or I just won't do that, I'll do that later. Like, you can't. You've got to be on the dot with timings, like, and you've also just got to work hard. Like, it does get on top of you, doesn't it? It's hard work. There's always stuff to do.
We'll finish sessions like yesterday, and in a sense, like, it probably comes across quite not disrespectful to say, oh, we have so many WhatsApps, because it's not. In each individual person, it's not. But like, to go on your phone after you've trained, the only times that I don't really go on my phone is when I'm sleeping or if I'm training. That's the only time that I don't go on WhatsApp. I don't go back to clients. It's the only time that I get to focus on myself. So I'll get around to my WhatsApps at the end of like a session. And for example, I've been out the house. I leave mine on Mondays at like 11:45. All meals are prepped. I fly through my morning check-ins on Monday, and then I'll look at my phone and I might have 25 WhatsApps. And it is quite daunting. And it's like, well, it's currently 8:30. I'm driving home.
That's like not 25 messages. That's like 25 people who have messaged you with voice notes and full videos.
And there's like 10 videos you need to look through, which will each take. But that's not a bad thing.
We're not complaining, because it is great.
Yeah,
like,
that's not where I'm looking at that and thinking, oh, this is a bad thing at all. It's not at all.
Just busy.
It's more so a sense where I'd be like, right, I leave a message and say, right, I'll get around to it in the morning with like my morning walk, or on the way home, drive home. We literally will sit there and we'll just.
We don't talk on the way home.
We do not talk. We take it in turns. We voice note. We get through clients, and it will almost be a sense where if you were to look at our morning routine, I can guarantee like me and Finn aren't talking, but it will be, I'll be doing a check-in, he's doing a check-in. And as mentioned, if we were to lose a check-in, our mornings are thrown off. Like,
the thing is as well, like, we don't talk, but we're both at the gym at the same time when we train. So like, for example, obviously we're not training together tomorrow, but if we were training together tomorrow, like, we probably wouldn't talk all morning, but we don't talk. And then we both just turn up at the gym at 2:30 and we're there. And we're like, yeah, you're right, yeah, good man. And we've both done however many check-ins, because we're busy. Like, you've just got to be strict and be on it. And there's no time for being lazy, really. Like, you can structure time in. Like, I have a Sunday with Shannon where I make sure I don't plan loads of check-ins in, and we allow ourselves to have a bit of time. Like, I still get back to voice notes and that, but if you can't obviously be 24/7 on it, replying within a second. Like, and I think you got to communicate that as well. That's important. Like, whenever I get a new starter, I'll always explain to them my communication process. So I'll say, when you send form videos, I'll always get back to you as soon as I can. That might be within an hour. That might be within 24 hours. I'm never ignoring you, but if you were to send me a message, like last night, for example, people will have messaged me last night at about, let's say, 9 p.m. About 9 p.m. And by that time, I'm showering, getting ready for bed, and I won't be on my phone. And then all throughout the morning today, I was doing check-ins from like 6 till midday. And then I had a setup, which took me a couple of hours. And then I was getting back to people when I was in the Uber on the way to the physio. So that's when I was getting back to people from like last night and throughout the day. So like, they messaged me at 8 p.m. the night before, but they know that I'm not ignoring them. They just know that I've got my immediate work first, which is all my check-ins. And then I'm going to get back to them as soon as I possibly can when I get some free time. Or, well, free time, which is WhatsApp time. So yeah, you just got to be strict with yourself, and you've got to be on it with your time management. Yeah,
you can be like, and this is the same time, like, it depends on really how well you want to do. Like, you can be slack. Like, if you want to put up an Instagram story, attention, all clients, check-ins will be returned tomorrow. Do it. sound, but that comes across as like that long-term and short-term kind of bonds you can build up with a client pretty poor. And like, I can guarantee, I said this on the podcast before, there won't be a single one of my clients, and same for you most likely, that listen to this, that have checked in on their check-in day or checked in the day before their check-in time, who haven't had their check-in on that day. Unless, and I'm trying to think, like, even when I had COVID and I couldn't even, like, I just turned my webcam off. I had a visual migraine where I couldn't even look at the screen, and I was still, like, I was closing my eyes. I had webcam, like, I had it on, but I was like closing my eyes, and I was just going through check-ins, and it was still the same service. I could still talk. I could still, if it was degrading the service slightly, then obviously I'd maybe say, right, we'll sack it off for a day. But in a sense, like, you can, from a coaching standpoint, you can make it as hard as you want, or you can make it as easy as you want. But in reality, if you don't put the work in, that's not going to lead to the clients that you want to coach. And at the same time, it's probably not going to lead to be in the positions you want to be from a coaching standpoint, if you really want to take it to the realms that me and Finn most likely want to get to. So, yeah.
So just put in the hard work.
Yeah.
That is literally the answer.
Yeah. So, yeah.
That's what we all, like, when we say that, like, you know, when people are like, what's the secret?
Just
or like, can I have some advice? Like 99% of the time, it's you need to work hard.
Yeah.
You need to put more effort in. Not just in terms of coaching, but in terms of anything.
Yeah.
Like, you just need to work harder, whether it means you need to learn more or you need to put more time and effort in to get better at a skill.
Yeah.
Or get more clients, work harder to get more clients, get better at coaching, learn more. Like, it's just putting the time in, putting the effort in.
Yeah. Agreed. Right.
Slater, baby.
Slater, baby.
Your opinion, most aesthetically pleasing physique out of the pros, open or classic? Seabull? Question mark.
We're not doing physique. Cheers, Slater. Thanks.
What's physique?
Well, what's physique? Cheers, mate. Thanks.
Well, do it if you want. Do physique, do open, do classic.
Physique, I mean, Jeremy Buendia is like, I don't really think many people top him. Like, even in the open or classic, you can't really beat.
Mate, you said you'd beat Jeremy Buendia.
It's Ryan Terry. Ryan, I'll do you. Yeah, no, Jeremy Buendia for physique, arguably, probably everything, if I'm honest. I think from like an aesthetical standpoint, like, you just can't really top that. And then Seabull, like, I think it's an easy one to say that. And
yeah, but it's because it's right.
It is, yeah. Like, I've shown photos of him to my mum. My mum loves him. My mum's like,
she looks,
yeah. Not, mate, don't say that.
Saved him on a phone.
Mate, that's my fucking mum. My mum, that's vile. So offended. End the podcast. I'm not carrying on. I can't do this. That's my mum.
Well, no.
I just can't do it. I need to call her. Mate, mum, you don't love Seabull, do you? And to be fair, I'd be like, please, actually, I'd be loving that.
Right, come on, let's not make this answer too long.
Seabull for classic. Open.
It's hard with open because you can't say who's the most aesthetically pleasing. It's just who's the biggest.
Yeah, they're not supposed to be. Like,
if it was
aesthetic,
to be
you're not
aesthetically pleasing, you'd probably say someone like Cedric.
Like Rich Piana.
You'd say someone like Cedric, but I think now, like, the people that are emerging.
Can we go for an old school like Flex Wheeler, because he looked fantastic?
Yeah,
like,
you could do, but I think did he say current?
Is it current? If it was old, like Flex Wheeler's physique is fantastically aesthetic, like the tight waist, wide shoulders, really good.
Yeah, then you could go to anyone. You could go to the old days, like the classic guys.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm bigger than now. Like,
beat Frank Zane, beat everyone.
I could do Frank Zane.
I reckon I'm better than Arnold. I reckon that's what you said.
Yeah.
You said that yesterday, actually.
Did I? Yeah. I'm doing the Arnold Classic, aren't I? Technically, the amateur one. So I could.
You're hoping he's there so you can do it. Yeah. Pose down against him.
Pose up. Start doing the most muscular next to him.
I would say though now, like in terms of aesthetically pleasing, but this is completely opinion dependent. I'd say Hunter Labrada is probably like one of the guys now because he's not insanely huge.
No,
he looks still like in proportion. He's got nice symmetry, nice flow. His waist is still tiny. Most of the massive guys, their waist is just blown out. But he's still, you know, he looks like he's holding his shape really well.
Yeah.
He's not going to be the biggest guy, but he looks mint.
Yeah.
And I think just like little things, like just how he hits his poses and that. Like a lot of it is posing, to be fair.
Yeah.
Like who's one of the if you're a really good poser, even if you've not got the best physique, you can make yourself look better than most other people.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hard with open because like you'd say Rami because he's the biggest.
Yeah.
Like if the goal is open, the most aesthetically pleasing in open is Rami because he's the biggest.
Yeah, and he would. Yeah. So.
And yeah, he's the best at the minute. But yeah, it's opinion, isn't it? But yeah, Seabull, if you were to say like, what would you most want to look like?
Yeah, I think
Seabull is probably.
I think every lad would be like, yeah, I'll look like him.
The thing is, I don't think every lad, because you know a lot of guys that are like open guys who like just bodybuilding. Yeah. They're not like no, but like I like bodybuilding. Yeah. I prefer bodybuilding to classic, and to be fair, I like classic, but I prefer.
I don't like classic for the sole purpose. I said this to you. it's driven off individuals who think they're classic and it's not. And
that's not at the top level though. I'm on about like we're on about pros.
I dislike the amateur ranks of classic because everybody who isn't big enough for open and hasn't got a waist and proportions for physique are like, oh, I'm classic, bro. And you look at their physique and there's not a single thing that's classic about them, but they're just small bodybuilders.
They like, just hit classic poses.
Yeah, they just hit classic poses, and I'm like, you just look like a small bodybuilder.
Yeah.
And like that probably comes across quite arrogant because I'm not massive, but it's like I wouldn't go around.
You didn't say that yesterday.
I wouldn't go around saying, oh, I'm a classic bodybuilder or whatever. It's just
Mate, we say this all the time. We wouldn't even say that we're a bodybuilder.
No, it's just
I'd say I'm a BB.
Yeah, BB. Yeah. How do you know you're a BB? Guys, question for you guys listening: how do you know you're a BB without being a BB or whatever?
What's that? Whatever that thing is that goes around now.
Yeah, something.
No, it's just when people put like, "This is the life of a BB" on their stories.
Yeah, it's like, well, congrats. You weigh your food and you train. Fucking hell. Ridiculous. Right. Cam Carey. That's surely Carey. I think that's Carey. Yeah. Have you ever had to deal with judgment from others? If so, how have you dealt with it? Yeah, a lot. I think everyone has. Everyone's dealt with judgment as well. Yeah, just don't care. Be more of a bellend. That's what my response.
In fitness, in the fitness realm.
Yeah, there has been.
It's normal, isn't it?
Yeah, like anything, and it's again, it sounds cocky, but anything you do well, you're going to attract people that don't like it. And even if you're not doing well, you will still attract people that don't like it. I've always been incredibly confident and borderline cocky in a lot of situations. And in a sense, like it probably is a detriment at times. Like I probably I bet some people might not like how I am in certain areas, but in the same time, I don't really care. Like I wouldn't really mind. And the same could be said when it comes to like dealing with other people's opinions. Like there will be people that have thought process. I said at the start of the podcast, there'll be people that build up opinions based off how we are on this podcast, and they might construe us to be completely different to how we are. But I don't really mind. Like I wouldn't want people to like. I wouldn't want everyone to listen to actively dislike me. It's not where I'm like, I don't give a fuck. I definitely would care. I wouldn't want like my image to be awful. But in a sense, judgment is always going to occur. And you almost just have to kind of just knock it on the end and think, right, how can I move forward from this? Does it matter? Does it affect me? Can I change that person's opinion? And most of the time you can't. And even then, like, you're thinking too much into it. I'd just be like, well, just do what you do and do it well. That's always what I've said. I just focus on doing my stuff. I do it well. And therefore, if people are going to judge upon that, then so be it. I'd rather spend my time doing things that are more positive.
The best thing to say, like, is you should only really care about the people whose judgment actually matters.
Yeah. So,
like, your family and your closest friends. And if their judgment is sort of getting you down or against you, then they're not really your closest friends.
No.
Like, it's normal. Like, when I first started doing, like, not even YouTube, when I first started posting anything on Instagram, like, your mates take the piss out of you. Yeah. It's normal. Like, people judge you. People think, why is he doing that? He loves himself. He's a dickhead. Like, but at that time, all I was doing was trying to post about what I was doing and enjoying it and learning. And I was, like, getting into fitness. Yeah. And now, like, where I am now is because of all of that. Because of the time and the years that I put in, putting out content for free and doing YouTube videos and stuff like that, gets you to where you are now.
Yeah.
So if I was worried back then about people judging me, I'd be probably still working at Next back at home, living with my parents.
Yeah.
Like, because I was too worried about what people think. And
now,
that's what most people do.
Sat with an FkPhysiques background.
Now we're sat in a huge warehouse in a massive office, prepared to make our gym in front of me.
Yeah.
It's massive, this place that we're in. It's ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Fantastic.
We're sat there now and it's just amazing.
Yeah, I wish you guys could see behind the man, that's for sure.
It's crazy.
But to be fair, like I said, there'll be people that judge. I've dealt with individuals on social media. Not really in the recent times, but like where people just don't like what you do. And again,
but it's like that. When like, you get it with clients, won't you? Who are like, oh, I don't want to film myself in the gym. I don't want to get judged, like things like that.
Yeah.
I always say like the first thing is like that's normal because people feel like that, and even I was like that when I was first filming myself in the gym. It was like, oh, it feels a bit weird.
Yeah.
Maybe what are people looking at me?
I'd hide my phone.
Yeah, it's normal. Like you're gonna feel like that because it's a new experience and you're a bit sort of worried. You don't want people confronting you or asking you why you're doing it because you're not confident enough yet, which is normal. But also then you've got to think if they have an issue with you filming, that's their issue because you're not doing anything wrong. Loads of people film themselves now. Like when we first started filming, it was a bit weird. There wasn't that many. Obviously, it was getting popular, like still, but there wasn't like loads of people. Now you go into a gym and most people will be filming or a lot of people will be filming their sets.
Yeah.
Because it's normal now.
Yeah.
And like, I don't think if someone comes up to you and says, "Oh, you shouldn't be filming," or "Don't film me," you're like, "Well, I'm not. I'm filming myself." Like, if they have an issue, that's their problem. And if they confront you about it, that's probably just because they're self-conscious about themselves and they probably want to better themselves. But because you're trying to do something, they don't like it. It's like when you were filming, like when that guy kicked your phone just because he was having a bad day, and because he's probably self-conscious that you look bigger and better than him. Like, and he's like being a dick about it. And then afterwards he was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I was being a dick." Like, it's just, that's what people like. And for us, like exactly what we were saying earlier, why do you care what other people are doing? Like, we don't give a shit what other people are doing. We won't message each other, "Oh, look what this person's doing." Or in the gym, we won't point out what someone's doing because we're just bothered about what we're doing and training. Like, that's why the issue is. I think if you're a judgmental person yourself, you're going to think about it more because you're going to think, because you'll think other people think like you. So that's why we're like, I don't care, because I don't think anyone's thinking about what I'm doing. And people will probably talk about me, or people probably take videos of what we're doing or send our shit around. But because we don't do that, we don't think that people are doing it. But if people are, then fair play. They've obviously got enough free time to do that.
It leads to like your own insecurities probably becoming worse, because then like you, as you mentioned, you think like, other people are doing this about me. And like usually like you wouldn't see people at the top level do it, and if you do, like I'd almost argue with the
do you think the top level pros or the top level people in anything
really give a fuck
of sending videos with people around? Like, imagine
people lesser than
Ronaldo. Ronaldo sent Bruno Fernandes a video of Messi missing a shot.
Oh my god, look at
like,
this fraud. Look at this fraud. They compared me to it. But yeah, I can understand potentially if it's like low level, you're all the same. But like in general, like why would you care if someone's doing something worse than you? You wouldn't. Usually the only times you would is if someone's doing better than you, and it's almost irking your insecurities, which is only going to exacerbate how you feel probably about yourself. So little things like that, negativity.
It's quite, you have to look on yourself, don't you?
Yeah. So,
right, come on, because we've not got long.
Is your question of mine?
I had one. Why is top set with a back off set better for hypertrophy than 3 sets with the same weight?
Good question.
We spoke about it earlier,
so this
but
is
it's not necessarily better. We spoke about it earlier.
Yeah, well, I go because Toby Warner has asked, why would you train to failure, low volume over RAR, higher volume? So we'll just answer this because it kind of applies.
We did speak about the quality in that area.
So if we're not even, we're actually going into something we haven't mentioned. So we get greater stimulus the closer that we take a targeted muscle to failure. So for example, if we were to do, let's say, a low incline dumbbell press, and we were to look at the musculature involved, so let's just say pec, anterior delt, tricep, we're going to get greater stimulus in those 3 muscle groups with the closer we get to failure. So for example, we're going to get a greater amount of stimulus from 1 rep in reserve in comparison to 6 reps in reserve. So as mentioned earlier, when we spoke about the 5 sets and we would do 10 reps, 10 reps, 10 reps and titrate the load up, that's going to result in suboptimal intensity on submaximal loads. And I would almost be looking at that and I'd be thinking, well, when you train with a lower volume, because you won't be able to handle as much volume as possible, you can therefore take your sets closer to failure, aka or failure, and you will get greater amount of stimulus and therefore more bang for your buck when it comes to actual sets spent in the gym to stimulus that we get out of each individual set.
Yeah.
So I thought that answered both of them.
Yeah, and obviously everything that we covered in that question earlier as well about why you wouldn't do a traditional 3 sets approach. It's very similar to what we were speaking about there. But yeah, I think like, again, it just focus on what your actual quality is, focus on your execution first, because for some people, like what we were saying at the start, 2 sets could be nowhere near enough because you're not even doing the movement right yet. So that's the first thing you need to worry about before you go into sort of why would a top set and a back off be better than 4 sets or anything like that. But yeah, generally just making sure you're getting more effective reps, because if you're doing 4 sets, you're going to be using submaximal load, you're going to be leaving probably, you might be able to take them all to failure, but if you do, how is the last 1-2 sets going to look in comparison to the first 1 or 2? Right. So yeah, everything that you said.
Right, I've got one from Ewan Fisher, 15. Should you do a dumbbell lateral? So it has to be a dumbbell lateral. Can't just be a regular lateral. Similar movement pattern? No, only a dumbbell. Should you do a dumbbell lateral raise before pressing movement on a push day? So not on an upper session, not anything. It has to be a push with a dumbbell. So basically, we program for clients, especially if we think about from a muscularity perspective. It's always what I try and say to people upon like startup. in general, if we can add any amount of tissue anywhere, obviously more muscle tissue is never going to be a bad idea. But if we can add a bit of tissue onto the side delts, usually from the front, from the side, from the rear, we're going to look wider and look bigger and better. So I think in a sense, from like a physique development standpoint, medial delts definitely have a lot of merit to it. We then also have to understand the role not only of a push session, but a pull session. If you imagine any pulling from a horizontal, vertical plane, likewise pushing horizontal, vertical, whatever it's going to be, where are you going to be moving? You're going to be moving at the shoulder joint, and therefore getting like movement around that shoulder girdle and around that pretty much that shoulder joint. So getting a bit of blood there by performing, maybe not a dumbbell lateral, we would usually favour, like during lockdown, we did a dumbbell lateral when we began, when we didn't have the access to the cable, but then we had a cuffed crucifix, we had a cuff lying, we had a cuffed leaning. We would usually favour a machine or a cuffed movement on like a cable, if so. But performing a lateral raise makes sense because you're going to get blood into the medial delt. You're also going to be physically and mentally fresh, so having a bit of time spent on something that most people need work on. And in a sense, like as mentioned, it's not where you need to do it. You can easily go in on and do a press. I have some clients where we perform like a fly with a holder contraction to begin. It doesn't have to be like a lateral, but for the vast majority of individuals, for currently me and Finn, we start both push and upper sessions with a lateral, and then we end with a lateral. So we have a lot of lateral work involved, but you don't need to do it. But it would be something that if you want to, if it feels like you can get warmed up in that shoulder joint and get some blood in and around the let's say the areas that we're going to be training, it's not going to be a bad idea. So it almost makes sense. And then as mentioned, physically and mentally, you're also going to be fresh.
Yeah, I think outside of that, obviously you're saying mentally, but if you think like, especially for us now, if we were to go into our session tomorrow and go straight onto our first press, like, I don't think I'd physically forget that. Like even if I was physically ready and warm and I've done steps to get my heart rate up, whatever, but mentally I wouldn't be quite like, I don't think I'd be quite prepared for that set. I wouldn't be like mentally sort of prepared to be like 100% in that set and ready to get as much out of it as possible. So even just from a bit of a mental perspective and a bit of a timing perspective, like if you walk into the gym and go straight onto your first movement, do 2 warm-ups and you're ready to go, like you've been in there 5 minutes, you're probably still pretty cold. Like,
has the pre-workout?
Yeah.
Like have you even had like an arousal?
I just don't think, for me especially, I wouldn't be ready. Like I'd want to make sure that I'm peaking for my top sets of my compounds. So like we'll often do, even on like leg days, we'll have 2 or 3 isolations before a compound. And sometimes we'll say like, I'm a bit battered before it, like, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but we try and make sure we're sort of, our energy levels and our arousal levels can peak for those bigger lifts. So we might delay our pre-workout a little bit.
We sip on them, like we'll have it boxed off by probably exercise 2, like just to
usually by the first compound.
First compound we'll have our pre's ticked off, and like we say, like pre-workouts aren't going to be a game changer for us. Like we could take any pre and we're not going to train any better. Or no pre, like it's not needed. But we'll be sipping on it, and then at the same time we're also probably sipping on our intra, so we're getting some like highly branched lymphodextrin, some EAAs around our system, and we're almost kind of getting ourselves physically prepared through supplementation, and then at the same time like any pre-potentiation, any actual direct work to that muscle group. And then at the same time, we're also potentially getting our psychological element of training switched on. I wouldn't, as mentioned, the thought process of going in and just jumping straight on a press, like I just wouldn't be ready. So
I think everyone's done that though, and when we first started training, that would have been normal. But now, there's more to it than just let's just get our shoulder joint warm. Like there's more to it than that for me as to why we do laterals. Like obviously what you spoke about in terms of maximising what we can do at the start of the session and everything, but just from a mental perspective, getting myself sort of ready, I'd rather do, even if it, like I say, it doesn't have to be a lateral, I'd rather do something beforehand to sort of prepare myself for the heavier work or the compound work. Yeah.
Right, is that all your questions?
No.
Right, okay. No.
But we need to be quicker with this.
Yeah.
Do either of you have any passions outside of bodybuilding/coaching?
No, we don't have a different life. Football, I mean, that's the only reason why I'm here. And Finn's car's broken down. We don't like each other. England are on in 9 minutes from now. Team news. So I'd say we both like football. Team news. I'd say we both like football.
And I'm amazing at it as well.
Yeah, Finn's fantastic.
That's it. That's it. That's the question.
The thing is,
we're boring. Football.
I quite like music, if I'm honest.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, I like music. I've got a diverse music taste.
No, you haven't.
Yes, I have, mate. My music.
No, you haven't. You just listen to anything. That's not diverse.
That's anything. I listen. I can vibe with pretty much anybody because I can always be like, yes, it sounds that sort of
Yeah,
stuff.
that's not diverse. That's just going, I listen to anything. That's not diverse. Like, you know every genre and you love them all.
I like music though.
Good for you.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks. Anything else?
I like film.
Oh yeah, Phil Kelly loves the cinema trip. Nothing's out in the cinema. He's like, Shannon, go cinema.
Just go and watch a blank screen, don't
you? Yeah. But no, other than that, football, that's pretty much it for me. Right. Finley Cade, this is the last question for me. So he's doing a PT qual.
PT qual?
Qual.
Oh, I thought you said core.
Oh no, PT qual. And he had to do 10 tips to sell your PT. And like, and you have to put like buzz lines. And he said like, this will get him max marks. So he put like, because he has to be like a general level 3 PT at the Pure, he has to put like sales tips. Like this is what he put in one of his boxes, like tone the muscle with high reps and stuff like that. And then there was another one that I said to him something like kickbacks on the Stairmaster for glutes, like stuff like that. So not really that funny.
Not even a question.
No, not really a question. He said just want to be toned for summer. Tips on how to tone the muscle. High reps. No carbs past 8 p.m. Yeah, that's it. Just standard. Right. Finn's question.
This is the final question.
Final question from who is it?
It's from Danny Herford. Danny H. Fitness Model.
Danny H. Fitness Model. There we go.
So he's put basically, what would you do if a client had, if you had a client that was limited with a lot of lifts? It says lifts, but we think he means lifts. If you had a client that was limited with a lot of lifts that you think or that you believe are to be best for growth. So, for example, if you had someone who had with a prolapsed or bulging disc in the back, and it's far too painful as a result of any squatting, barbell work, picking up from the floor, etc. Yeah. So basically, he's saying, what would you do if you had a client who struggled to do, let's say, what we would class as primary lifts, or let's say squat, bench, deadlift, any big lifts? What would you do? What would you do? Tell me.
I think so. Firstly, I'd highlight, if it's going to be an online client, it's going to be varied in comparison to a one-to-one client, because a one-to-one client, you can actually run them through the exercises that you have present and that you think could be beneficial. Obviously, online, you can prescribe a training plan, but they might potentially be doing a movement, and execution could be almost not causing further aggravation, but they could just potentially manipulate how they're stood or how they're going to be performing that movement so they could still perform it. Now, I would almost just break it down, and I'd be saying, well, can you still get, let's say, a hypertrophy response? Can you still get a great amount of stimulus if you take a muscle from a fully lengthened position to a fully shortened position and load? Yes. So you don't have to be married upon these movements that, like, for example, you have to barbell squat or you have to do a squat variant. Obviously, in an ideal scenario, if you're trying to grow some legs or if you're trying to, let's say, maximize tissue growth upon the lower body, it would make sense to have a squat variant in there. But some people will literally not be able to perform a hip hinge or a squat variant because of injuries and niggles. So I would firstly assess and see, right, what movements can we get away with? Then let's say they can't do a barbell deadlift. Could they potentially do maybe a barbell RDL? If not, could they potentially do, as you've been doing, like a 45-degree hyper? If they can't do that, could they potentially maybe do, let's say, a paused 45-degree hyper? You could almost make it mechanically more challenging, and therefore you can almost find some section movements that you can still take to a decent level of intensity. If you're completely screwed, it is going to be a challenge, because obviously if you can't perform any, let's say, lower back loading or whatever, there's going to be a very limited amount of exercises. But if they're training in a decent gym, you can band movements, you can make manipulations, and it's just probably a little bit more work upon your end to get them sorted. This is something I would say to a client, like, right, well, maybe in the first couple of weeks, this is going to be a bit of trial and error, but within the first and second month, we'll have this boxed off easily and everything should be fine. But it's just going to take a bit of work on your end and then a bit of work on my end to find that good, like, homeostasis between exercises and then exercises that are not going to pretty much fuck you up. So you almost just want to find that balance. But in a sense, like, you wouldn't want to prescribe to a client, right, well, I want you to do a barbell squat, but they can't do a barbell squat because it's not going to be ideal. So I just look at this and I'd be thinking, right, what can they get away with? Can they still take the targeted muscle from a fully lengthened to a fully shortened position under load? If so, then they can still get a great amount of stimulus. And from a return standpoint, they're still going to be able to grow under potentially your coaching, your training one-to-one. But again, it's just going to be a lot of work on both of you to almost find the exercises selected. But there will be a certain amount. And at the same time, if not, again, you could look for external measures. You can still manipulate, let's say if it is an online client, through their nutrition, their biofeedback, their recovery variables, their expenditure. It doesn't have to be direct, let's say, lower body training if it was lower body training. So it's a bit of a challenging one because it's easier said than done. And at the same time, without having proper context behind it, we wouldn't really be able to prescribe it because we don't know if this is an individual or if this is just someone who's almost made up and thinking, right, this might potentially happen. But working with someone, getting to know them, being honest with them and just having a chat, I think would most likely be advised.
Yeah, I'd say on top of that, like you can definitely work in higher rep ranges.
Yeah.
So you don't need to be doing stupid weight, trying to do 3 rep maxes or anything like that. Like generally people who have got back issues is because they've done something like that in the past where they've done a load that they probably couldn't do while staying tight or staying in control of it. They've done something that's unsafe. So you could work in higher rep ranges. You know, even if someone has, let's say, a bulged disc, like more often than not, they could probably do a 15 to 20 repper stiff leg deadlift or RDL or rack pull or block pull with a tempo prescribed, leaving reps in reserve, like to strengthen that area. Also, I definitely speak to the client and ask them to get it looked at by a professional. You know, we're not professionals when it comes to these kind of things. So definitely look at seeing a sports therapist or a physio and someone that you trust, someone that you know, like with Danny, I know that he goes to the physio at Lion Sports Therapy. So someone that you trust, you know, get them to go and speak to them and see what they think. And they will help if they're a good physio or good sports therapist. They'll give you rehab exercises. They'll give you ways to strengthen the weaker areas. Yeah. So that's a massive thing. You know, a lot of people just neglect it and they just think, oh, my back's hurting. My back's like, I've got an injury. I can't train back. I'll just leave it and not do anything about it. When we're always injured. We've always got the slight things like, but you can work around it. We've not got any like crazy things like that, but I know people that do. Yeah. They go to a physio. They might have to miss out on pull training for 8 weeks, or they might have to really sort of manipulate it to the point where they're not enjoying it. It's not enjoyable. It's not fun if you can't just rip a weight off the floor. Like, that's speaking from experience. I haven't been able to do that for ages. Like, it's annoying, but it doesn't mean that I can't train. Like, you still just have to work around it. And like I say, it's time consuming. You know, I'll have times where I'll go and do an RDL and I'm like, oh, I can do it again. Yeah, and then the following week it breaks me down and my back's battered again. And it's like, oh, maybe I still can't do it. Maybe I need to be more careful with that. Like, so it's time and patience and being safe, which is like sort of a big focus on it. But then also it's putting money into it and investment into your health, which for one, obviously, if they've got a PT, they already are, which is great. Yeah. But then on top of that, you know, it's all well and good having a PT, but we're not professionals. We can't diagnose. Yeah. We might think, okay, it could be this, it could be tendonitis,
it could be advice, that. But you'll never hear us say, right, this is what we're going to do. That. Yeah.
Like, we can give advice and say, this is what I recommend, or this is what I think you could potentially have. We'll often speak to Aaron if we've got issues, because obviously we trust Aaron and his judgment, so we'll chat to him about what potentially do with our clients and take what his word is. But more often than not, for him, it's like, right, change this in terms of training, which will probably be reduced volume, work in higher rep ranges, stay away from any intense pain, and then look at sorting the pain out, which will be through treatment. So, yeah, you know, you've just got to put that time in to work on yourself. Yeah.
Right. Ding, ding, ding. Bang on. Perfect timing. It's currently 8, so the game will have just kicked off. Do you want to do a prediction just to leave? I'm going to go for a 1-0 England. What are you going to go for, mate?
3-1.
Yeah, 3-1.
I'm always optimistic.
Yeah, I'm not. But no, appreciate the listen as always, guys. Any story tags always going to be welcomed. Any questions that you want to be asked, pretty much do this every Tuesday. So feel free to drop your questions in the question box we put up on the stories. Other than that, episode 13. Thanks, guys, for listening, and we'll catch you later.